Well now, dear friends, allow me to introduce myself. Samuel Langhorne Clemens, though the world prefers to call me Mark Twain. Once upon a time, I penned a little satire called The Gilded Age, which promptly lent its name to an era of spectacular opulence and equally spectacular corruption. In that long-ago epoch, industrial barons amassed wealth like dragons hoarding gold, while the working class faced precarious living. Looking at your modern age, I see new fortunes, new controversies, and old patterns of violence against the rich and powerful, just as in the Gilded Age. Back then, anarchists and outraged workers sometimes took aim at corporate titans or even presidents. In this day and age, we read of healthcare CEOs shot in the street or repeated assassination attempts on a former president. It all reminds me that history never really leaves us. It merely dresses in fresh attire. Hence, I welcome you to the Great American Forum, where we gather voices, past and present, to dissect how we ended up back in this stew of wealth, power, and sudden violence. Let us begin, shall we?
I greet you all. I am Andrew Carnegie, the steel baron who built libraries and concert halls, yet employed Pinkertons against union men. In my day, my associate Mr. Frick narrowly escaped assassination by an anarchist. I saw firsthand how wealth disparity could ignite extreme rage. Today, you have men like Brian Thompson, targeted for leading a healthcare giant. The parallels are striking. When the public feels corporations serve profit over people, radical minds may lash out violently. My counsel? The wealthy should undertake moral stewardship before fury boils over. A philanthropic facade is insufficient if laborers or patients feel exploited.
In the late 19th century, we had the so-called robber barons, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, who built empires of oil, steel, and rails. Their extreme wealth fueled resentment, culminating in labor strikes and sometimes bullets. President William McKinley was assassinated in 1901 by an anarchist who saw him as the embodiment of oppressive power. Fast forward to today, and you find echoes. Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, gunned down outside a swanky Manhattan hotel. The assassin decried corporate greed, just as yesteryear's radicals cursed the capitalists. Then there's Donald Trump, who survived a bullet grazing his ear at a rally, plus a foiled sniper attempt near his golf course. It's not precisely the same script as McKinley's fate, but the tension is there. Some folks see him as a champion of the forgotten, others see him as part of a corrupt system. Either way, when society's anger reaches a boil, the high and mighty become targets. Name's William Magyar Tweed, Boss Tweed, if you please. I ran Tammany Hall, awarding contracts for bribes and fixing elections. Some folks hollered corruption, but I called it practical politics. Now, in your era, the game's slicker, but money still talks. And if the common folk see only greed and no justice, they sometimes pick up a gun. I ain't endorsing violence, mind you. Just saying, we learned this lesson a century ago, yet you're still dancing the same jig. Keep your deals clean, or you'll face more bullets from angry souls who can't afford a seat at the table. Let's not forget the New Year's Day 2025 attacks. In New Orleans, a man pledged to ISIS rammed his pickup truck into Bourbon Street revelers, while in Las Vegas, another extremist detonated explosives outside Trump's hotel. Were these purely ideological? Possibly, yet I suspect broader unrest plays a role. In the Gilded Age, men of violence sometimes cloak themselves in anarchist or socialist rhetoric. Today, we see extremist flags, personal vendettas, or anti-corporate beliefs fueling tragedies. The costumes may differ, but the spirit of discontent is the same. What does it all teach us? Perhaps that gilding society's cracks with wealth and technology doesn't fix the underlying faults. When too many people sense injustice, or find no lawful path to address grievances, a few resort to dreadful extremes. That was the Gilded Age story. It remains the modern one.
Comrades, Eugene Debs here. I once led railroad strikes, believing that capitalism, left unchecked, devours workers' rights. I don't condone murder. Yet when inequalities fester, someone will inevitably break under the weight. From the Gilded Age to your day, you see assassins or terrorists who fix blame on the elites. I say, let's address the rot rampant profiteering, inadequate healthcare, wage slavery, so workers need not resort to violence. Democracy must empower everyone, or else you feed the flames of desperation.
We've brought together a cast of voices, from Andrew Carnegie and Boss Tweed, architects of Gilded Age power and corruption, to labor warriors like Eugene V., Debs and Mother Jones, plus modern figures such as Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden. Each has a perspective on how wealth, politics, and society intersect. Their testimonies reveal that whether the era is 1890 or 2025, extremes of inequality breed resentment, and resentment sometimes breeds violence. Now, I'm no fan of murder or assassination. Good heavens, no. But we must acknowledge that if a system pushes many to despair, some misguided souls will aim a gun at whomever they see as the face of oppression, be it a healthcare executive or a flamboyant ex-president. We should learn from these parallels rather than repeat them indefinitely.
I am Mary Harris Jones, Mother Jones, to the coal miners who needed a voice. In my time, workers died in mines while the owners fattened their purses. Some tried to shoot the barons or bomb them. It's tragic but predictable if society doesn't care for the working folks. Today, we see a healthcare CEO gunned down, ex-presidents dodging bullets. Different times, same underlying cause, feeling powerless can drive men to violence. Let us give labor fair treatment, laws with teeth, and moral accountability, so that bullets become relics of a darker era.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and yes, I've had attempts on my life by radicals or who knows what. I cut taxes, deregulated, boosted the economy, and they hated me for it. That's how capitalism works, a thriving top trickles down. But criminals and crazies don't see it that way. They think if they take out the big shot, be it a president or a CEO, they solve their problems. It's wrong, folks. We need law, order, and a strong stance against any violence. America can't be great if leaders are under constant threat of assassination.
I am Senator Bernie Sanders. We've witnessed horrifying attacks on CEOs, on political figures. Such violence stems from a society where people feel locked out. Health costs skyrocket, wages stagnate, and the 1% reaps colossal gains. My vision is to expand social programs, healthcare for all, robust worker rights, so resentment doesn't boil into bloodshed. Democracy falters when wealth disparity is this extreme. We can't excuse violence, but we must address the conditions fueling despair.
I'm Joe Biden, speaking after tragedies like the New Year's Day attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas and the lethal shooting of Brian Thompson. Whether the perpetrator claims ISIS allegiance or hates corporate power, the result is the same: lives lost, communities shaken. My administration invests in mental health, infrastructure, and fair governance. But we can't ignore what fosters these extremists, the sense that the system leaves them behind. We have a chance to unite around shared values, opportunity, justice, and security for every American. That's how we break the cycle of violence.
I am Harriet Tubman, who guided many from bondage. Though slavery ended, oppression wore new faces: sharecropping, convict leasing. Today, some see a system where corporations or politicians profit while the vulnerable suffer. That can breed desperate acts of violence. But freedom means more than chains removed, it means living with dignity and fair treatment. We must work for that, through legislation, activism, and compassion, not bullets.
Upton Sinclair here, once a muckraker shining light on filthy meatpacking plants. I recall President McKinley falling to an assassin who saw him as a capitalist pawn. Now, the healthcare CEO is gunned down, and ex-presidents are in someone's crosshairs. Grievances, economic, political, turn deadly when people believe no peaceful reform is possible. Muckraking was my weapon of choice, bringing horrors to public view so moral outrage might spur reform. Let's keep investigating, let's keep shining light. That's the best safeguard against violence run amok.
Well, Mark Twain here, folks. In coining Gilded Age, I aim to ridicule an era that plated gold over rotting timber. Now, a century later, I see new permutations. Trillion-dollar corporations, rocket-building billionaires, ex-presidents under gunfire. The gilding is shinier, the grievances more varied, but the pattern's the same. Wealth and power can inflame resentment if inequality goes unchecked. We can gild the cracks forever, or we can fix them. Let's hope you moderns choose the latter, so real gold can run deeper than surface glitter. And now, before I surrender the stage, let me share my final reflection in cameo form. Asterisk, Mark Twain speaking to you directly. When I coined the phrase Gilded Age, I meant to satirize a country that plated gold over a rickety frame. In truth, we can only veneer so much. Sooner or later, if the foundations remain rotten, they'll crack, and out will come the worst in humanity. If you want fewer bullets flying, fewer CEOs or presidents turned into targets, you'd best ensure fair wages, accessible healthcare, honest governance, so that the populace doesn't believe violence is their only recourse. Let us hope you, dear listeners, can do what my generation failed to do, usher in a truly golden era, not merely a gilded one. With that, let us close our great American forum. I tip my hat to you all. May your tomorrow glean wisdom from our shared past.